The sounds that followed defied explanation. I heard Marcus talking, cooing, making clicking noises. I heard what should have been roars and attack calls turn into something closer to greeting chirps. 30 minutes later, the emergency response team arrived at Marcus Webb's location. They found him sitting on a fallen log, eating his trail mix, surrounded by 3 of the deadliest creatures in the sector. All 3 were lying down around him like protective pets. The razor-claw matriarch had her massive head in his lap. The extraction team leader's report was brief. Commander, you're not going to believe this, but let me guess, I interrupted. He's fine. The predators are calm. And he's planning to bring them back. How did you know? I looked at Marcus Webb's file again, at that confident smile, at the species designation that read human in bold letters. Because, I said tiredly, that's what they do. The silence in the command center when Marcus Webb walked through the main gates was, frankly, glorious. Every single member of my staff, all 43 of them, stood frozen like someone had hit a universal pause button. And honestly, I couldn't blame them. Marcus strolled in wearing the same hiking gear he'd left in, looking slightly dusty, but otherwise completely intact. Behind him, in what could only be described as the galaxy's most terrifying parade, came 3 apex predators that should have been fighting over the scraps of his remains. Brutus, the Thornback Ravager, lumbered along at his right side, quills laid flat in what our databases claimed was a sign of contentment. The Shadow Stalker, which Marcus had apparently named Whisper for reasons that escaped all logic, flickered in and out of visibility at his left. And bringing up the rear, the razor-claw matriarch, he'd dubbed Queenie, padded along with her 6 legs moving in perfect synchronization, her eyes scanning the area like a bodyguard. Morning, Commander. Marcus called out cheerfully, waving at me through the observation window. Sorry about the delay. Queenie found a really interesting cave system, and we got a bit sidetracked. You should really update your geological surveys, by the way. There's a whole network of crystal formations about 5 clicks northeast that aren't on any of the maps. I descended the stairs slowly, very slowly, trying to process what my eyes were showing me. Mr. Webb, I began, proud that my voice only cracked slightly, would you care to explain how you're still alive? He looked genuinely confused. Why wouldn't I be? Because those creatures eat survey teams for breakfast. Oh, that. He scratched behind Brutus's earplates again, and the massive Ravager made that impossible purring sound. Yeah, I figured out the problem pretty quickly. Your teams keep treating them like monsters. But they are just animals. Really, really effective predators, sure, but they respond to the same basic principles as anything else. Vrick's tentacles were trembling so badly he could barely hold his data pad. Principles? What principles? Marcus shrugged. Respect their space. Show you're not a threat. Understand their body language. Read the signs. Brutus here was only aggressive because your research teams kept trying to tranquilize him for samples. Whisper species hunts by ambush, so sudden movements trigger their attack instinct. Stay calm, move deliberately, and they just want to investigate. And the matriarch? I asked weakly. Queenie. Marcus smiled and the massive creature made a rumbling sound that vibrated through the ground. She's protecting a new litter about 3 clicks from here. Your people probably got too close to her den. She was just being a good mom. Once I found the den and showed her I wasn't a threat to her babies, we were good. Actually, her cubs are adorable. Well, adorable in a could tear your arm off kind of way. One of my junior researchers, a young Threxian named Plix, raised a tentative claw. But sir, how did you find the den? Our scanners couldn't locate it. I followed the scratch marks and scat patterns, Marcus said, like this was obvious. Basic tracking. Plus, Queenie started getting anxious when we went in certain directions, so I just paid attention to where she wanted to go. I pinched the bridge of my nose, or the equivalent anatomical structure. Let me get this straight. In under 4 hours, you befriended 3 separate species of apex predators that have killed dozens of trained professionals, mapped geological features our equipment missed, and located a den we've been searching for over a year. Well, when you put it like that, it sounds impressive. He grinned. I just had a nice walk in the woods with some new friends. That's when Director Valth arrived, her scales flushed with the deep purple that indicated she was about 3 seconds from either fainting or screaming. She'd been off station when this disaster started, and I'd been desperately trying to figure out how to explain it in my report. Commander Krell, she said with forced calm, why are there 3 Class 5 predators in my compound? Director, I can explain, they are with me, Marcus interrupted cheerfully. Don't worry, they are totally safe. Well, safe for me. Everyone else should probably keep their distance for now. They are still getting used to new people. As if to demonstrate, a maintenance worker made the mistake of approaching too quickly. Whisper materialized directly in front of them, teeth bared, and the worker scrambled backward so fast they tripped over their own appendages. Whisper, no, Marcus said firmly. These are friends. Friend. See. He gestured to the terrified worker. No hunting in the compound. The shadow stalker tilted its head, considered, and then flickered back to semi-invisibility. The worker scrambled away, making sounds I'd never heard their species produce before. Director Valther's color shifted to a concerning shade of crimson. Mr. Webb, you cannot keep 3 deadly predators as pets. Who said anything about pets? Marcus looked offended. They are companions. Partners. There's a difference. Besides, think about the research opportunities. I spent hours observing their behavior in natural conditions. Brutus's species has a complex social hierarchy based on age, not size. Whisper's kind uses a form of infrasonic communication we haven't documented. And Queenie's maternal instincts are incredibly sophisticated. She actually teaches her cubs to hunt using a progression system. Despite myself, despite everything, I felt my scientific curiosity stirring. A progression system? Yeah. She starts them on smaller prey, then gradually introduces larger targets. It's like a curriculum. And the way she corrects them without causing injury. Incredible precision. He pulled out his personal data recorder. I got it all on video. Hours of footage. Plix was already pulling up display screens, her eyes wide with excitement. Other researchers started gathering, whispering among themselves. Even Director Valther's coloring shifted slightly toward interested yellow. You documented their behavior, she asked carefully. In the wild. From about 2 meters away, yeah. Marcus scrolled through his device. Oh, and I collected samples. Hair, shed quills, even some blood from where Brutus had an old wound. Figured your lab might want them. All collected with consent, of course. Consent. Vrick squeaked. How do you get consent from a thornback ravager? Marcus looked at him like he'd asked why water was wet. You ask. Well, not in words, obviously. But you present the collection tool, let them inspect it, wait for permissive body language. Basic ethical sampling. I pulled up his footage on the main screen, and I'll be honest, what I saw changed everything. These weren't the monsters from our fear-soaked reports. These were complex, intelligent creatures with distinct personalities and sophisticated behaviors. The way Queenie organized her cubs, how Brutus used different quill patterns to communicate, the intricate way Whisper's camouflage responded to emotional states, it was groundbreaking. This is, Director Valth said slowly, actually remarkable research. Thanks. Marcus beamed. So, about the living arrangements, absolutely not, she and I said simultaneously. They can't stay in the compound, I continued. It's against every safety protocol we have. Marcus's face fell. Then Brutus made a low, mournful sound. Whisper pressed against Marcus's leg, suddenly visible and looking remarkably dejected. Queenie actually whimpered. Oh, come on, Marcus protested. Look at them. They'll be heartbroken. They're predators, Director Valth said, though her voice lacked conviction now. They belong in the wild. But they don't want to go back. Marcus gestured to his companions. Brutus was lonely. His pack drove him out for being too curious about things outside their territory. Whisper's a juvenile who got separated from his family group. And Queenie is exhausted from raising 3 litters alone. They chose to come with me. The research team was now openly studying the creatures, maintaining what they clearly believed was a safe distance. Brutus noticed their attention, and I swear by every scientific principle I hold dear, struck a pose that showed off his quills. Is he? Plix asked in wonder, showing off. Oh yeah, Marcus confirmed. His kind of vain. Loves attention. Don't you, buddy? The Ravager preened, actually preened, and several researchers pulled out recording devices. I could see where this was heading. I'd worked in xenobiology long enough to recognize when the universe was laughing at my protocols and procedures. Director, I said quietly, we could establish a controlled habitat. Extended observation under semi-natural conditions with a human liaison could provide unprecedented data. You want to authorize this madness? I want to understand how a human with 3 months of field experience accomplished what our best teams couldn't in 2 cycles. If we can learn even a fraction of his methods, she studied Marcus, who was now playing what appeared to be a game with all 3 creatures involving a stick and a lot of running. They were taking turns chasing it, and Queenie was letting Whisper win. Fine, Director Valth said finally. But he signs every liability waiver we have. And those creatures get monitoring implants. Deal. Marcus called out, clearly having overheard. But the implants have to be comfortable. Nothing that'll irritate them. Of course. Of course he was negotiating for the comfort of creatures that could tear through hull plating. Over the next few hours, we watched as Marcus worked with our engineering team to design a habitat extension. He knew exactly what environmental conditions each species needed, how much space, what kind of enrichment. Brutus needed rough surfaces for quill maintenance. Whisper required varied lighting for his camouflage practice. Queenie wanted elevated platforms for observation, and soft nesting materials. By evening, Survey Post Theta 9 had its first live-in predator research program. And Marcus Webb had officially become either the bravest, or most insane human I'd ever encountered. Possibly both. As I filed my report that night, I included a recommendation that all human staff receive additional safety training. Not to protect them from the wildlife. To protect the wildlife from them. Marcus passed by my office window, throwing a ball for Brutus while Whisper practiced pouncing and Queenie supervised like a concerned parent. He waved at me, grinning that infuriatingly confident human smile. "Hey Commander," he called. "I'm planning another hike next week. Want to come? I promise it'll be educational." I closed my office door, locked it, and updated my transfer request. Some mysteries of the universe, I decided, were better left unexplored, but I'll admit, as I watched the footage of those 3 apex predators playing with a human like he was their pack leader, I couldn't help but laugh. Humans. Terrifying, impossible, absolutely ridiculous humans. The galaxy didn't stand a chance. The marble floors of Summit Financial gleamed under crystal chandeliers as Marcus Wellington strode through the lobby, his Italian leather shoes clicking with practiced authority. At 47, he'd built an empire in commercial real estate, and his portfolio spoke louder than any introduction ever could. Today was supposed to be simple. A quick meeting with his investment advisor, then lunch at the club. That's when he noticed her. A small girl, couldn't have been more than 9 years old, stood at the customer service counter, her worn sneakers squeaking against the polished floor. Her hair was pulled back in 2 neat braids, and she clutched a tattered envelope in both hands like it contained the world's secrets. "Excuse me," she said softly to the banker behind the counter. "I need to check my account balance, please." Marcus slowed his pace, curiosity getting the better of him. The banker, a middle-aged woman with reading glasses perched on her nose, looked down with thinly veiled impatience. "Sweetheart, this is a private banking institution. Do your parents have an account here?" "It's my account," the girl insisted, her voice steady despite the obvious nervousness in her small frame. "My grandmother set it up for me. I have the account number right here." The banker sighed audibly. "Young lady, I don't think you understand how this works. This bank requires a minimum balance of $25,000 just to open an account. Now, unless you have a parent or guardian, I have the papers," the girl interrupted, sliding the envelope across the counter with determination that seemed too large for someone so small. Marcus found himself drifting closer, drawn by something he couldn't quite name. Perhaps it was the absurdity of the situation. Perhaps it was the memory of being dismissed himself once, decades ago, before he'd made his first million. Either way, he caught himself smirking. The banker opened the envelope with exaggerated patience, clearly humoring what she assumed was a child's fantasy. She pulled out a weathered account statement and a deposit slip, her eyes scanning the documents with the kind of boredom that comes from 30 years behind the same desk. Then she froze. Her expression shifted so suddenly that Marcus actually took a step closer. The color drained from her face as she looked at the computer screen, then back at the papers, then at the screen again. I need to speak with Mr. Hartley," she stammered, suddenly abandoning her condescension for something that looked uncomfortably like panic. "Please wait right here, miss. Don't move." The girl nodded solemnly, her small hands now clasped in front of her, waiting with the kind of patience that only children and the very wise seem to possess. Marcus couldn't help himself. He approached the counter, his curiosity now fully engaged. "Trouble?" he asked the banker, who seemed to have forgotten he existed. "No, sir. I mean, this is highly unusual. Please excuse me." She practically sprinted toward the back offices. Within 2 minutes, 3 things happened that Marcus had never witnessed in 20 years of banking at Summit Financial. First, Raymond Hartley, the branch vice president, the man who typically moved at the pace of continental drift, came rushing out of his office, straightening his tie as he walked. Second, 2 additional staff members appeared, one carrying what looked like a leather-bound ledger. Third, the entire customer service area fell silent, as every employee within earshot found a reason to drift closer to the counter. "Miss Thompson." Hartley's voice was warm honey now, all traces of institutional coldness evaporated. "I'm Raymond Hartley, vice president of this branch. I want to personally apologize for any confusion. Your account is, of course, in perfect standing." The girl, Thompson, apparently, simply nodded. "I just wanted to see my balance. I'm supposed to check it every month. My grandmother made me promise." Hartley smiled, though Marcus detected something else in his expression. Respect, maybe. Or perhaps fear of litigation. "Of course. Let me pull that up for you right now." He typed something into the computer, and Marcus watched as the man's eyebrows climbed toward his hairline. "Your current balance is..." Hartley paused, cleared his throat, and continued in a voice that carried across the suddenly quiet lobby. $7,432,861.17. Marcus felt his own smirk die on his face. The girl nodded seriously. That's right. Grandma Ruth started the account when I was born. She said she worked for 53 years cleaning houses and taking care of other people's children, and she wanted to make sure I'd never have to worry the way she did. She invested a little bit every month. She said compound interest was the eighth wonder of the world. She passed away last year, but she made me promise to check the account every month and never touch it except for my education. The lobby had gone completely silent. Marcus found himself staring at this small girl with braids and worn sneakers, feeling something unfamiliar and uncomfortable lodging in his chest. She told me, the girl continued, her voice growing softer, that the money wasn't really what mattered. She said what mattered was learning the discipline of saving, of planning, of respecting what you have. She said too many people judge others by their shoes and their cars, but real wealth is invisible. It's in your mind and your habits. Hartley was nodding now, his professional mask slipping to reveal something more human underneath. Your grandmother was a very wise woman, Miss Thompson. She was, the girl agreed. She also said that people would probably treat me different once they knew about the money, and that I should be careful about that. She said to watch how people treat me when they think I'm nobody, because that shows who they really are. Marcus felt that uncomfortable feeling intensify. He thought about his own morning, the dismissive wave to the parking attendant, the curt nod to the receptionist, the barely acknowledged barista who'd made his coffee. All invisible people in his wealthy world. The girl carefully folded her statement and returned it to the envelope. Thank you for checking, Mr. Hartley. I'll see you next month. Wait, Marcus heard himself say before he could stop the word from escaping. The girl turned to look at him, her dark eyes clear and assessing in a way that made him feel suddenly transparent. Yes, sir. Marcus Wellington, who'd negotiated million-dollar deals without breaking a sweat, who'd stared down corporate raiders and hostile takeover attempts, found himself at a loss for words in front of a 9-year-old. Your grandmother, she sounds like she was an extraordinary woman. She was, the girl said simply. She used to tell me that the measure of a person isn't what they have, but what they do with what they have. And how they treat people who can't do anything for them. With that, she turned and walked toward the exit, her small figure somehow commanding more presence than her size should have allowed. Marcus watched her go, then looked around at the assembled bankers and staff, all of whom were avoiding eye contact with varying degrees of success. The original banker, the one who'd been so dismissive, had turned an impressive shade of crimson. Mr. Wellington. Hartley ventured carefully. Your advisor is ready for you in the conference room. But Marcus wasn't listening. He was thinking about a woman he'd never met, a woman who'd spent 53 years cleaning houses, and somehow accumulated $7 million. He was thinking about the discipline that required. The vision. The sacrifice. He was thinking about his own daughter, 16 years old, who'd wrecked her third car last month and barely blinked when he bought her a fourth. He was thinking about how he'd walked past that girl without a second glance, just another insignificant figure in the landscape of his important day. Mr. Wellington. Hartley repeated. Marcus turned to face him. Tell me something. Do you know Miss Thompson's full name? Hartley glanced at his computer screen. Jasmine Ruth Thompson. The Ruth is after her grandmother. And the grandmother's name? Ruth Marie Thompson. She was a domestic worker for several families in the Brookfield Estates area. I actually remember her coming in here. She never missed a monthly deposit in 31 years. Always polite, always patient, even when the wait was long. Hartley's expression had gone thoughtful. I don't think I ever really saw her until now. Marcus nodded slowly. Yeah, he said quietly. I know the feeling. That evening, Marcus sat in his home office, a room lined with awards and photographs of handshakes with senators and governors. But he wasn't looking at any of them. He was looking at his own banking app, at the numbers that had always brought him satisfaction. Then he picked up his phone and called his daughter. Dad? What's up? I'm out with friends. I know. I just wanted to tell you something. Tomorrow, you're getting a job. Silence on the other end. Then, what? Dad, I don't need a job. You give me everything I know I do. That's the problem. You're going to work 20 hours a week, minimum wage, somewhere where you have to serve people. Restaurant, retail, I don't care. And you're going to do it for a year. Are you serious right now? My friends are going to, your friends are going to think whatever they think. But you're going to learn what I forgot somewhere along the way, that every person you meet has a story, and that how you treat people when they can't do anything for you is who you really are. More silence. Then, in a smaller voice, what happened today, Dad? Marcus thought about a little girl with braids and old sneakers, standing in a bank lobby, worth more than most of the people who'd walked past her without a glance. I met someone who taught me more in 5 minutes than I've learned in 5 years. And I'm not going to waste the lesson. After he hung up, Marcus sat for a long time in the dark, thinking about invisible wealth and visible values. About a woman who cleaned houses and changed the world. About judgment and prejudice and the stories we never bother to ask. The next morning, when he walked through the Summit Financial lobby, he stopped at the customer service counter where the same banker from yesterday was working. "Good morning," he said, and meant it. She looked up, startled, and he saw the shame still lingering in her eyes. "Sir." "Good morning. I wanted to ask you something." "Miss Thompson, Jasmine. Do you know if there's a scholarship fund, or something set up in her grandmother's name?" I don't think so, sir." "Then let's create one. I'll fund it initially, say, $500,000. Target it toward children of domestic workers and service industry families who demonstrate financial literacy and academic excellence. Partner with local schools to identify candidates." The banker stared at him. "Mr. Wellington, that's very generous." "It's not generous," Marcus said quietly. "It's overdue. And I want it named the Ruth Marie Thompson Memorial Scholarship. Can you help me set that up?" "Yes, sir. Absolutely." As he walked toward the conference room, Marcus caught his reflection in the polished brass of the elevator doors. He looked the same as he had yesterday, same expensive suit, same confident bearing. But something had shifted beneath the surface, something he couldn't quite name, but could definitely feel. It felt like waking up. 3 months later, Marcus was back at Summit Financial for the scholarship committee's first meeting when he saw a familiar small figure in the lobby. Jasmine Thompson was at the same counter, same envelope in hand, conducting her monthly ritual. This time, she wasn't alone. 2 other children stood with her, one looked about her age, the other a bit younger. They each had their own envelopes, and they waited patiently as Jasmine explained something to the banker in her serious, steady voice. Marcus approached slowly, not wanting to interrupt. "And Grandma Ruth always said that if you teach one person something valuable, it's your responsibility to teach others. So I've been showing my cousins how to save their allowance money and how compound interest works. We're using a chart she made for me." The banker, the same one from that first encounter, was nodding, but this time her expression was attentive and warm. "That's wonderful, Jasmine. Your grandmother would be so proud." Jasmine nodded seriously. "I think so too. She used to say that money is just a tool, but knowledge is power. If I keep the knowledge to myself, I'm wasting half of what she gave me." Marcus found himself smiling, a genuine expression that reached all the way to his chest where that uncomfortable feeling had been lodged 3 months ago. The discomfort had transformed into something else now, something that felt like purpose. "Miss Thompson," he said, and she turned, her face lit up with recognition. "Oh. Hello, Mr. Wellington. Are you checking your balance too?" "Not today. Actually, I wanted to tell you something. Do you have a minute?" She glanced at her cousins, who nodded and then looked back at Marcus. "Okay. I wanted you to know that you changed my life that day. I know that sounds dramatic for a quick interaction in a bank lobby, but it's true. You reminded me of things I'd forgotten, or maybe never really learned in the first place." Jasmine tilted her head, studying him with those clear, assessing eyes. "What things?" "That every person has value. That wealth without wisdom is empty. That how we treat people, all people, not just the ones who can do something for us, is the real measure of who we are." She smiled then, a sudden bright expression that made her look exactly like the 9-year-old she was. Grandma Ruth used to say something like that. She said that manners and respect don't cost anything, so there's no excuse for not giving them to everyone. She was right. Marcus paused, then continued. "I set up a scholarship fund in her name. I thought you should know. It's for kids whose parents work in service industries, cleaning, food service, hospitality. Kids who might not otherwise get a chance at a good education." Jasmine's eyes went wide. "Really? Really? And I was thinking, when you're older, if you're interested, maybe you could help with the selection committee. I think you'd have good insight into what your grandmother would have wanted." "I'd like that," she said softly. "I'd like that a lot." They stood there for a moment, the wealthy real estate mogul and the small girl with millions she'd never touch, united by the wisdom of a woman who'd spent her life making other people's homes clean while teaching her granddaughter to value things that couldn't be bought. "Can I ask you something, Mr. Wellington?" "Of course. Why did you laugh that day?" "When I was trying to check my account." Marcus felt heat rise to his face, shame and embarrassment warring in his chest. I was being judgmental. I made assumptions based on how you looked, how old you were. I thought the situation was absurd, that you were just a kid playing pretend. And now I know that you were the only person in that lobby who really understood what wealth means. And I was the one playing pretend." Jasmine nodded slowly, as if confirming something she'd already suspected. Grandma Ruth said that the world teaches us to judge people by what we can see, their clothes, their cars, their houses. She said the hard part, the part that takes practice, is learning to see what's invisible. That's where the real person lives. She was a very wise woman. She was. And she used to say one more thing. Jasmine's expression grew serious again. She said that it's never too late to change. That every day you wake up is another chance to become who you want to be, not who you've been. Marcus felt something catch in his throat. Yeah, he managed. She was right about that too. 5 years later, the Ruth Marie Thompson Memorial Scholarship had helped 43 students attend college. Jasmine Thompson, now 14, served on the selection committee during her summer breaks, bringing the same serious attention to the applications that she brought to her monthly account checks. Marcus Wellington had changed too. He'd started a mentorship program at his company, specifically targeting young people from working-class backgrounds. He'd diversified his hiring practices. He'd become known, to his initial discomfort and eventual acceptance, as someone who asked the parking attendants about their families and remembered the names of the cleaning staff. His daughter, initially furious about the mandatory job requirement, had worked at a sandwich shop for a year and then voluntarily stayed for another 6 months. She was now studying social work at university, to her father's surprised delight, and every month, without fail, Marcus made it a point to be at Summit Financial on the third Tuesday, when Jasmine Thompson came to check her balance. They'd exchange a few words, never long, never deep, but always meaningful. Sometimes the most profound lessons Marcus had learned come not from lengthy lectures or detailed manuals, but from brief encounters with people who simply live their values rather than talking about them. Ruth Marie Thompson had spent 53 years making that truth visible through her granddaughter. And one wealthy man, laughing at a child in a bank lobby, had learned to finally see what had been there all along, that respect is free, that character is priceless, and that the smallest person in the room might be carrying the biggest lesson. The real question isn't who has the most money, it's who has the wisdom to know what really matters, and sometimes, that wisdom comes in worn sneakers and carries an envelope containing more than just bank statements. It carries a legacy of dignity, discipline, and the quiet power of seeing people as they truly are, not as they appear to be.